Hey guys, Seth from Silver Soul Gaming here, back again with another video. This one's a bit late, I'm sorry about that, been busy, but I thought we might touch on DLC, and I think DLC is a very interesting topic. It wasn't really a thing until about 10 years, not even 10 years ago, and it's become something that has almost, added this harsh light to the gaming world, and it's quite frustrating, especially with the things surrounding gambling, with the loot boxes that we now see in games like Black Ops and Rainbow Six Siege and RPG titles throughout that have these loot box systems that you almost feel forced to spend real money to at least have a chance to get new DLC items that have been thrown into this almost gambling kind of loot box system that is kind of disgusting, honestly. It's horrible that it is in games, but it's a thing. I mean, you're not forced to spend real life money, but if you do, you are technically gambling in a way. And it's been in the media recently surrounding EA and their loot box systems in Battlefront, and how it is essentially gambling and how that makes it illegal in other states. And EA have essentially come out and said, we're not bad guys, and it's not gambling, we've changed the name of the loot box to whatever the fuck they changed it to. It doesn't matter, it's still the same thing, you can't just change the name. But that's another topic for another fucking video. I'm so pissed about that. But this whole gambling part of the DLC thing that has been added in really since, Black Ops 3, I think, was one of the first games to kind of do it. And ever since then, it's kind of become slowly more and more in the media, and especially coming to legal issues surrounding the gambling part, because I know in some countries gambling obviously isn't legal. Here in Australia, there's no issue with that, especially in the state where I live. There's a casino 3 hours from where I live that doesn't matter. So it's not really an issue in the media here, but I know in other countries it is a big deal. See, that kind of DLC I don't like. I think it's in there for your pure cash grab, and it is quantity over quality in almost all parts. It is not there for somebody to have a better experience, it is there for the company to make an extra bit of money. And it's, it puts the gaming world in a bad light, and it frustrates me that it's a thing. But then, there are awesome DLCs that we get, like the Witcher DLCs, which in themselves are almost better than the base game. They extend on the map of the game, and they give us a very compelling story that is interesting, intriguing, and fun. And it's almost like you've gotten a whole nother game for, half the price of what you paid for this one. Especially in the Witcher 3 case, where, it was essentially 2 whole games in the Blood and Wine, and the other one, the name is unknown, I'm sorry. And you had Undead Nightmare, essentially a whole nother game on Red Dead, but it is, it's a fun spoof take on the zombie kind of thing that's added into it, and the horror elements that you see in cheesy horror movies. Very cool. I'm very happy they did that. That was before the whole GTA 5 thing, where if you spent $100 real life dollars, you could essentially afford everything for the new DLC pack that they had sent out. That's not gambling, but I still think that it is not very good DLC in GTA 5. It is purely just pay to have fun and win. It is essentially pay to win, but I see why people could pay it, but if you don't spend real money, you essentially have to grind the heists over and over and over again in that game, which I'm not doing. I'm not spending real life money, and that GTA 5 online experience is lost to me. And I know a lot of my friends don't want to pay that money, and I don't think it's really that fun, to be honest, either. I think without a story, it's not interesting. I will say that the big heist DLC that they did with the jetpacks and the government and all that kind of stuff was interesting, because it actually had a story to it. That's DLC I did like for GTA 5. And then you got things like the Spider-Man DLC, which are kind of, they are similar to story DLCs. Or it is essentially just a story DLC that, it's not much though. It's not really what I would have liked from that game, but that's not the point of this video. It's just story and a little bit of extra gameplay to go with it. That isn't essentially a whole nother game, but it's still better than loot boxes and pay to win and cosmetic stuff. And it's not really great, but it's not bad either. Like, it's worth the $20 that they charge, I'd say. Like, I wasn't complaining what I got for in that DLC specifically. But then you've got great AAA games that win Game of the Year that don't have DLC, and I think that makes the game almost better, because it doesn't have this whole thing of, oh yeah, you get this whole game, but there's also another part of the game that you don't get unless you pay $20 on top of your full price game that you already paid for. Which almost makes that game better in a way, which is, again, very interesting that there's no DLC for that game. But for people who don't know, like, the director did want to put DLC, but he felt that it was so big for what he wanted to do, and that if he couldn't do it, he didn't want to half-ass something and then put it in the game for an extra, couple bucks, and he just didn't want to do that to the people that were buying God of War, which is great on his half. I think the director of God of War is amazing, just person in general, let alone games developer, but that's not the point of this video again. But I think DLC has suffered this, it's had a downfall, especially in recent years, due to, I hate to say it, and I hate to jump on the bandwagon, but it's kind of due to EA, and I'm not a massive fan of Ubisoft, and I think they also kind of contributed to this whole pay for just shit that, you don't have to pay for, but they kind of throw it at you and be like, hey, pay for this, especially in the new Assassin's Creeds, and it's probably going to be in Watch Dogs Legion. And it's put DLC in this bad light. Something that could be great, like Undead Nightmare, Blood and Wine from Witcher 3, as much as they aren't great, the Spider-Man DLC, and it's disappointing now that this DLC, it has become kind of bad, and it's become somewhat, bad in the media's eyes as well, and in the fans' eyes, because they don't want to pay a whole extra $20 for extra story content, but it's something that's become a thing. I personally don't mind if we get a full game, because I don't mind with the Spider-Man DLC, because you do get a full game, and you don't have to play the DLC pack that comes afterwards, really, because it doesn't really add. It adds a little bit onto the original game, but it's not a massive. It doesn't make a massive difference if you don't play the DLC. That's fine. I don't mind that. So, yeah, I think DLC can be great, and it should be great. And I think we really need to start cutting out the whole cosmetic part to it, where maybe they could throw it in as DLC, but you don't pay for it with real money. Because I don't know many people that do pay for stuff with real money that is cosmetic. There are some hardcore people who are massive fans of whatever game and do it. That I get. I do that myself with certain games. Everybody kind of does it. They all have their own game. But I think companies should maybe just start thinking about throwing DLC in as a thing. Especially cosmetic stuff, I think, just needs to be free. You can do it, get it through doing extra things in the game, and it's provided free. I get that it costs money probably to make those things, but I doubt it's extremely much, and I'm sure a lot of it was probably in the original plan when making the game. But then, see, things like whole extra games, almost, that's fine. I'm happy to pay $20, $30 for that. That I don't care about. I'm happy with that. I don't mind paying that money. Especially here in Australia, things are a bit more expensive because our dollar's not as good. But that's, not the point. But yeah, I think DLC, it's something that can be great, but at the moment, it's bad. And it really needs to find itself back into this light of happiness, because I think it was a great thing. And originally, it was something, that wasn't frowned upon when it was a thing. And now that it has become this whole pay to win scenario and the gambling, it has, come in this terrible light. And it really just needs to come back and be something great that everybody wants to play and buy, and we're all happy with. And I think that's all I have to say on this topic. I like to keep these videos about 10 minutes, and here we are. So that's all I have to say. Make sure you go check out our website, link will be in the description. There's articles up there. There's always a review of some old games. If you just want to check out opinions of games that are very old, I think those are actually extremely interesting. I read the one about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the PS2 game, Xbox game. I thought that was actually fun to read, especially for such an old game. I just think that's interesting. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give the video a like. Check out our Twitch. There's a podcast. It's kind of a podcast. It gets streamed on there occasionally. But yeah, all that stuff will be in the description.